Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to 2 Minutes to Review. It's Matt.
And it's Zach.
Our album review show, the longest album review in under 2 minutes wins. This band, new supergroup, I would say, on the block. They're coming out with their debut. This is the brand new one from L.S Dunes.
Basically, if you have been a fan of punk, post-hardcore, emo rock, anything, let's just say this. If when you saw the lineup for When We Were Young Music Festival and you went, oh my God, this supergroup is right up your alley. I mean, it's got Frank.
Or if you ever went to Hot Topic.
Yeah, that's probably a good example too. But AKA me. I mean, this group's got Frank from My Chemical Romance. It's got Travis from Coheed and Cambria. It's got Anthony from Circa Survive and Saosin. And it's got Tim and Tucker from Thursday. Whoa. That's a pretty cool lineup, dare I say. I mean, even if you're not a huge fan of any of those bands, you got to admit that those musicians together definitely entices you enough to listen to L.S Dunes and to see what's up with this band. And also a little sidetrack / note here. Of course, Frank and Travis might be some of the bigger names attached to this group, but Anthony, not only is he an awesome singer and frontman, but if you've seen him live, you know that he's just insane. I actually got to see Circa Survive during the Warped Tour's 25th anniversary festival celebration in Atlantic City. And he ended Circa Survive's set by literally having the crowd carry him from the stage all the way to the ocean, because the festival was on the beach. He literally had them carry him hundreds of feet away from the stage into the ocean. And if you actually go to any of our social Instagram, and you look at the videos we've posted, you'll see the video that I was able to capture of literally him crowd surfing almost to the ocean from the stage. It was pretty badass, dare I say.
Did they throw him in the ocean? Or did they just carry him there and put him there?
They gently tossed him in. They lovingly said, hip, hip, hooray. I mean, I don't know about the hip, hip, hooray part, but it was a gentle kind of throw. It wasn't like a boo, toss him into the ocean. It was a, you want to go swimming? We'll help you. Yeah. Very motivational. But check out the video yourself and you can be the judge. But I just want to bring that up because it's just a testament to how he's already kind of an awesome figure within the scene. And just, it's a cool group of musicians.
That's a lot to put on a t-shirt.
It is. A lot. I hope you can afford all that text on your
The Hot Topic kid out there who's got all these bands t-shirts, he's going to have such a hard time deciding what to wear to go see them live.
Well, no. Oh, no. If anything, you don't wear it. It's almost by default, you don't wear any of those shirts. Do you not remember our episode where we talked about the cliche of wearing the band's t-shirt to the concert? You might
But you're not going to see Coheed and Cambria. You're going to see L.S Dunes.
That to me, I think you eliminate that.
Comment below.
Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Epic Footnote. Would it be okay to wear a Coheed, My Chemical Romance, or Thursday shirt to an L.S Dunes concert? I actually really want to make that a thing. I think that'd be interesting to find out.
I think we just made it a thing.
Well, that's exciting. With that in mind, Matt, do you mind, dear sir, if I go first?
I guess.
I know.
I don't see how this is any different than any other review that we do.
Once in a while, I'm slightly nicer and let you review it first.
Yeah, on the ones that you don't want to go first.
That's how it works. That's kind of how life works, buddy.
3, 2, 1, go.
I mean, let's just get to the chase. It's really hard to find much to dislike about this album. It's frankly, if you're a fan of any of the bands associated with this group, you're going to really like L.S Dunes and you're going to like Past Lives. It's just a fun, well-produced, post-punk, hard rock album that just has the right amount of grit and melody to make it just enjoyable. I mean, Anthony proves he's an eclectic, he is as eclectic of a singer as he is a performer. Frank and Travis really make an awesome guitar duo. Granted, their work is less theatrical than maybe what you hear in Coheed and My Chemical Romance, respectfully, but it's still some great riffs and solos. And Tim and Tucker, they really just prove how, their rhythm, the bass and drums, and throughout the all album really just proves that Thursday might be the most underrated rock group of the 2000s. Granted, there's definitely some songs that could use just a little bit of trimming, at least by a minute. I hate to say this, but as good as songs like Gray Veins and Blender start off, they can drag a little bit and I kind of zone out. But then you got songs like Permanent, Rebellion, Antibodies, Like Forever, and the title track that just really hit all the right notes. So, I mean, where does L.S Dunes rank among some other great supergroups? I'm not gonna lie, it's too soon to really tell. But this album, Past Lives, is a great start to possibly leaving a really strong mark for L.S Dunes.
I really hope they hit all the right notes throughout the entire album.
It's punk. You don't really need to hit actual notes.
Well, I mean, if you're off key.
If you want me to be literal, all the metaphorical right notes. How about that, jerk?
Sorry, I have to.
You have to.
Somebody's going to do it. It might as well be me.
But that's not true. They're going to be too busy correcting me on the names I mispronounce.
Well, that's going to be another thing to add to the list.
Yeah.
Anyway, out of 5, how much would you give it?
Out of $5? Out of 5 stars?
out of 5 lollipops.
Out of 5 lollipops. I don't know why
if you haven't seen the album cover, it's 5 lollipops.
Oh. Sorry, sidetrack. Interesting. Yeah, I was kind of thinking it was like flowers, but now that you mention it.
It's 5 orange lollipops one for each member of the band.
Yeah, look at that. Now I want a lollipop, especially so close after Halloween. I kind of go back and forth between 3.5 and 4 stars. I'm leaning towards 4 stars. I think it's just a fun, hard rock punk album.
Okay.
It's just the right amount of thrills and the right amount of simplicity to make this just a fun, enjoyable record.
Just the right amount of chills?
Just the right amount of chills. So, Matt, are you ready?
Let's do it.
3, 2, 1, go!
So the best way that I can possibly put this, because I didn't know what to expect going into this album, especially with that lineup of musicians and what were they really trying to go for. The best way that I can put this is that this is a straight ahead, more accessible version of At the Drive-In, at least to me. If you're a fan of Circa Survive, you are definitely going to be into this. If you are a fan of even like a little bit of like desert or stoner rock, you're going to love this too. It's simplistic enough to be accessible to a lot of people. It's also in depth enough to be interesting than more than just a surface level listen. The bass alone on this album is incredible. The rumble that Tim gets on bass is insane. So if you are at all interested in this album and you are a fan of anything that's from the early 2000s or the late 90s with post-punk or any sort of experimental type music, like I said, At the Drive-In, maybe sprinkled in with a little Mars Volta. I know it's a pretty big name to throw in here, but I'm going to throw it in here anyway because it doesn't sound like what you would think from people who are in Coheed and Cambria or My Chemical Romance or Thursday. It definitely takes on a different vibe and a different level of musicianship than you're used to hearing from these individuals. And with them growing up over time and just the amount of knowledge that they have from the industry at this point, it's really interesting to see where they take this album because they're just not resting on the laurels of the bands that they came from.
Wow. I have a lot of things I want to respond to with your comments. But first, out of 5 lollipops, what do you give this album?
I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Okay.
I do think that there is areas where you could cut back a little bit, like you said, but I think more along the lines of you got to make the songs sound a little bit separated from each other. They do kind of, if you're just in a long listening session, they do kind of just blend together at some point. Just do a little bit more to differentiate your sound. That's really my only criticism. But it's a good album from a supergroup, and I didn't mention this, and I probably should have. And I'm Gonna do it now anyway. That they sound convincing, that they are actually there playing for the right reasons. It sounds like a confident, convincing album. It's not that they were just like, all right, let's get in a room, let's play some music. All right, we're done. See ya.
It sounds like a band.
Yeah, it does.
It's not a bunch of musicians trying to cash in on the scene. It's a band of guys who genuinely want to be in the room together, which is refreshing to hear. Yep. Two things I want to call out about your review. I loved how you described it as a simplistic at the drive-in, because I don't hear the progressive aspects as much, but definitely the rawness of a band like At the Drive-In. I would,
especially in his vocals too. Like,
as soon as you said it, I'm like, yeah, no, Anthony's. I mean, and also Anthony's vocals, I think, sound awesome on this. It fits the sound so well.
It does.
Everything. They all complement each other so well. I think that's another thing that I'm really impressed by, is that, I mean, as you mentioned, I think, yeah, the bass and the rhythm in general on this album is super tight, and all these musicians, definitely, you can it's almost a little surprising that this is the first time all of them have been in a recording studio together at the same time, or part of a project together, I should say. One thing I kind of disagree with you on, though, is that to me, I think there's enough hints of each band in this that I could see a Thursday fan really digging this. I can see even a My Chemical Romance or a Coheed fan really into this, because there's definitely the key roots of those bands in this, but what's refreshing is that it's not overwhelmingly, okay, well, now this song's going to sound like My Chemical Romance, and this song's going to sound like Circa Survive. Like, they bring their own experience, their maturity, as you kind of mentioned, and use it to create something new. It's the right amount of nostalgia and freshness at the same time, if you think about it.
I didn't pick that up at all. Like, if I was trying to listen for hints of these bands, like, I would listen for maybe like the progressive nature of Coheed or the theatrics of My Chemical Romance. None of that bled through. Like,
see, but then there's songs like Forever, I actually think could have not. I'm not saying that it could have been mistaken for a My Chemical Romance song, but there's a sort of, maybe not playfulness, but a sort of harmony element to it that could totally translate into, or that can totally be relatable for My Chemical Romance fans or Coheed fans. I think there's enough there that would not turn off the fans of those original bands, but enough for them to appreciate what it is and maybe even get into it and discover other bands too, possibly out of it.
It's a possibility. The main thing for me was how much this took me back to that early 2000s, late 90s scene, like when all these bands were like coming up, and it just has that very raw, very almost like, this is, granted, it's their first album, but it's not really their first album. It's like that first album production where the vocals are blended into the mix, where the vocals are like struggling, trying to get above it, but they're clear enough where you can hear them. It's a very specific style of producing an album, and for some bands it works, for some bands it doesn't. And I think in this case it does work, because I don't know if they were trying to make it sound almost like a period piece, but I could definitely see this fitting in. And if you didn't know any better, like if you happen to come across this album in a bin somewhere and you put it on, you could almost be mistaken for this being not only a band from 20 years ago. Holy shit that I can say that this band is from 20 years ago, but it was also the first time that they ever tried to put something up because of that style of mix.
I mean, I hear that raw hunger that a band usually has on their debut album, which is why so many debut albums are special, because you hear that hunger, that drive. And while, yeah, there's definitely an element of old nostalgia to it, but what I kind of appreciate, it doesn't sound overtly nostalgic.
Right.
It's like it still sounds fresh. It goes back to when I say fresh, it sounds like the production kind of surprised me at how well it was, all things considered. They could have gone down
messed up.
they could have
been
done a
messed up big
basement
time.
recording just for the sake of it to really capture that like hardcore grit. Or they could have overproduced it because they can afford to overproduce it.
Yep.
It really was the right balance. It sounded like a new band who collected all their savings to produce the best album that they could, hoping that, you know what, maybe this will lead to that big contract or to that big tour.
And that's what that's what it feels like. It feels like, like I said, this is why it feels like a period piece to me, and it's really interesting in that aspect. Like you just said, like you could have done all of these crazy things, but you didn't. You held back, and you did it tastefully.
Mm-hmm. I go back to the word hunger. There's a hunger in this album, or a sense of drive, that I feel like so many actual bands starting on the scene are lacking. And you can even argue that so many bands with established artists kind of lack because they're just kind of coasting. Like this, you can tell that these 5 guys are taking it seriously. And maybe part of it also helps that like they're actually touring. They're actually playing festivals, and Thursday and even now Coheed, Travis, they're like pulling double duty essentially. Like they're making an effort to actually play shows together and like reorganizing their schedules to even do it. That says something. And you can hear why they're doing it, because they're pulling it off. Yeah,
it just works.
Now, before we segue into finding out who gave the longest review in under 2 minutes, is it too soon to say where this supergroup kind of ranks among the best supergroups, or do you think this album kind of already helps skyrocket them to the top of the list?
I don't think it skyrockets anybody anywhere. I think it's tough with a supergroup because they could be one and done, and it's, a good album for what it is. And, you don't get to see them play live. And, if you miss it the first time through, and then it's like, all right, well, the album was cool and that's pretty much it. Or, you get them to do a couple of albums, do a couple of tours, and they're really trying to take this somewhere. I mean, granted, like you said, they're touring now, and maybe they're trying to take it somewhere, but who knows if this is going to lead to a second album, a third album, kind of like the Winery Dogs. And, we talked about this in our Supergroup episode, that I think that trio and the way that they sound and the way that they've chosen to handle themselves really can make you say that the Winery Dogs are one of the best supergroups that are out there. So I'm hoping that they choose to handle themselves and continue on just like a regular band. Because when a supergroup treats themselves like a regular band, also like Audioslave, they were just a regular band, but they were a supergroup. You'd never know. So until we really know what to expect from them, I would say that this is a great jumping off point, but it's way too soon to say that this puts them anywhere amongst supergroups, unless you just want to rate supergroup albums, but I know that's not what we did in the past.
Speaking of the past episode, if you have to pick 3, we named the 3 best supergroups of all time. Give it a listen on any streaming platform you can imagine. Little plug there. So, Matt, let's get into what really matters. The times. Matt, what was my time ranking? Did I make it in under 2 minutes?
You did.
Ooh.
Finally. And
Not
you came
finally.
in.
Overreacting.
Finally.
Overreacting, but continue.
1 minute and 36 seconds.
Oof. Well, Matt, you, sir, came in at 1 minute and 49 seconds. This was a tight race, but congratulations, sir. You won.
Once again. Cheers.
But we want to hear what you think. Do you agree with us on L.S Dunes' debut album, Past Lives? Do you think it's an awesome punk rock album that really just shines and shows everyone how great these musicians are? Or do you think it's overrated? Do you think it's just another supergroup reducing another subpar album? Let us know on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Epic Footnote. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear more episodes like this. Maybe even check out a few cool videos too. And thank you so much to Lucky 13 Beard Co.
Make sure that you log on to lucky13beardco.com and you go check out the products page, because we've got our very own beard balm and oil with the guys from Lucky 13. It is in tribute to Lemmy from Motorhead. Everything he was about rolled into one amazing scent: bourbon, tobacco, cola, leather. You are going to smell epic. I can guarantee it. You're going to feel epic as well. Your beard is never going to be softer than if you use any of the beard balms or oils from Lucky 13. And we're giving you 10% off your entire order. Throw anything you want in the cart and use the code EFP10 at checkout. That's EFP10, Lucky 13, the number, beardco.com.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you join us for another episode real soon.